Usually, when we learn of some shocking incident in the civilized world, we show sympathy and empathy for its participants. At the same time, we tend to forget that there are also cases in the wilderness that can without hesitation be called a tragedy worthy of large-scale publicity. In our story, the main characters faced one of the creepiest manifestations of animal nature, originating from prehistoric times. This extraordinary case took place in Michigan when the entire animal world was under a single call for the reproduction of the species. Early in the morning, 3 small-town residents set out into the woods to hunt partridges. The men knew the route like the back of their hand and had hiked the route many times before. But this time, as the hunters went deeper into the woods, they saw a pile of broken twigs and bits of fur stuck in the tree bark on the ground, rampant with hooves. It was clear that some forest drama had played out here. The hunters carefully followed the trail, which was impossible to miss because of the crumpled leaves and dried blood everywhere. The trail led the 3 men to the river, where they saw a terrible sight. At first, the hunters had no idea what was wrong or what kind of beast lay before them. But then, when they looked more closely, they understood what had happened. The matter was that 2 deer fought to the death in the battle for the female and the continuation of the species. By a fatal accident, their antlers intertwined, becoming a death trap for the unfortunate animals. The horror of the situation was that one of the participants in the fight was already dead, so the second deer had to drag him on himself, literally. At first, the hunters were shocked by such a terrible picture, but it became clear that they had to save the survivor. To that end, the men surrounded the deer and began slowly squeezing the ring. Although the animal was incredibly exhausted, it still had enough strength to put up a resistance. Finally, the hunters held the deer down and tied its hind legs with a belt. Fortunately, local rangers working nearby had a chainsaw with them. When one of the hunters approached the forester with such an unusual request, he thought they were trying to play a joke on him. The man took the chainsaw and followed the hunter, not yet knowing what he was about to see. But when he saw the dreadful picture of life and death intertwined in a single hole, the forester could not hold back his tears. Fortunately, it took only a couple of minutes to cut the horns, and soon the unfortunate deer was rescued. The hunters buried his fallen enemy in a nearby woodland, not wanting to leave him to be devoured by scavengers. The participants of this story remembered for a long time the deer which almost died in such a terrible way. It may seem unbelievable, but a year later, the incident had a sequel, when a deer, whose head was adorned with young, barely grown antlers, began to come to the house of one of the hunters. The animal stood at the fence for a long time and looked through the windows to the unspeakable delight of the young son of the owner. The hunter smiled and understood everything, without words, as soon as he looked at the young antlers of the deer. The man guessed that most likely it was the same antlered fighter that he and his friends had saved at the riverbank a year ago. Eventually, the deer became quite tame, and the hunter even set up a feeder for it at the edge of the forest. Many of the residents were puzzled by the friendship of the man and the wild animal, and made various theories and assumptions, and only the hunter knew that in this way the saved deer expressed his gratitude, because if he and his friends had not helped the animal then, it would have certainly died. Therefore, there is no doubt that gratitude is common for wild animals. Our story today is a clear confirmation of that. Friends, if you liked this fantastic story, like it, write your comments, and share this video with your friends. Goodbye, everyone.